Good morning, everyone. Welcome along to the Blood Red Morning Bulletin, your place at 10 a.m. every weekday for the latest Liverpool FC news and, of course, transfer rumours all the way through the summer. A couple of more transfer rumours today. Myself, Patrick Smith, and Dave Comerford to talk through of Liverpool.com. Dave, how's things?
Good, Patrick. How are you this morning?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. I'm a last-minute substitute for Ed Kay, so bit out of the news on this one. But yeah, let's crack into it anyway, shall we? So first, we've got Kephren Thuram. So there's reports this morning that Liverpool are going to make a bid for him. They've come from France, pretty reliable source. It's Nice Matin via Get French Football News. They're reporting Liverpool want the 22-year-old France international to strengthen their revamped midfield. So Dave, pretty exciting one. He's been playing at the under-20. Well, he will play at the under-21 European Championships this week. What do you think of the move?
I mean, first of all, it's good to have some sort of timeline in place. If the reports to be believed, it would suggest that Liverpool are obviously going to wait until this tournament is finished in sort of early July, or something like that. So obviously there's been this McAllister deal that got done. I think, what was it, the 14th of June or something like that was announced, and then Liverpool fans have sort of been waiting in the time since to obviously not for maybe another signing straight away, but just to know what the club's actual plan is. And so maybe with, I think there's 4 targets at this tournament, not being able to get one of those in beforehand, which maybe would have been ideal, it kind of makes sense that the next bit of business might not happen until afterwards. Certainly in the midfield, maybe we'll see something on the defensive front, although there's a possibility that Liverpool will sort of look to see how much money they have left post midfield before they do anything like that. So I think that's the first thing, is that there's a potential transfer timeline in place here, and it's something that's encouraging. The second thing is that obviously you can sort of see where he fits in. I'd say he would sort of be, I don't think he's going to be in that double pivot. I think McAllister's probably got sort of the left-sided number 8 role. So I think then it will fall on Thuram to take on the role on the right-hand side, maybe replacing Jordan Henderson. But obviously we don't fully know how things are going to look at the moment. And if that was to be the case, there probably has to be a bigger emphasis from him on goals and assists than we've seen so far in his career. Like I say, we don't fully know how he'd fit, but it's certainly, you feel as if McAllister is going to be the marquee signing within that midfield, and then basically the pieces are going to be assembled around him. So I think it would be another really good bit of business. It certainly seems like he's sort of priority number 2 on the list of midfield targets that Liverpool have drawn up. And then we'll see, I suppose, if they can get him through the door for a decent price, whether they can bring in a third player to supplement him, which I suppose would be ideal in terms of depth.
Yeah, I mean, but just on that though, so they want to supplement the whole midfield, really, don't they? And with Kephren Thuram, he is a box-to-box player. He's good going forward. But then do you think there's a possibility, Dave, that, he's 6'4", he's pretty physical. Do you reckon he could potentially turn into a number 6? I mean, it's a position he's not really played, but given the physical attributes of him and his age, do you think that's a possibility for Liverpool to turn him into maybe Fabinho's successor?
Well, I've seen, quite a few people sort of talk about that, and I do see where you're coming from on it. But from what I've kind of looked at with the player, it seems that the untapped potential with him is more kind of to be that attacking player. Well, not necessarily, an attacking player, but a midfielder who can be very effective when he drives forward, because, it's something that he likes to do already. I think it just needs to be sort of better, maybe decision making when he gets into those advanced positions, really. So I think in terms of the direction that you want to take him on, that would probably be it. I mean, the whole number 6 thing is quite interesting, because I think we weren't sure before the window whether Liverpool were going to go for someone who could seriously kind of challenge Fabinho to be that number 1 option in that position during the summer. And by the looks of it, they're not going to do that. Certainly not someone who's ready to occupy that role straight away. It looks like the main focus is on number 8. And I suppose maybe Stefan Bajcetic sort of factors into the thinking there. Is he going to be someone who sort of takes on that role long term anyway? Are they wary of blocking his path with someone who's young? So I think, to read into it, I mean, maybe something happens in a future window, but for me, the current plan will probably be to trust Bajcetic long term, and then just try and bring in midfielders who maybe one of them could play that number 6 role. Maybe they're like versatile in that sense. But I think at the moment, the emphasis is on number 8. And certainly to come back to your question on Thuram, I think Klopp, if he sort of dropped him into his current Liverpool team, would probably be focused more on what he does when he's driving forward at the ball than he is when Liverpool don't have it. And I don't think he'd be asked to sort of fill in for Fabinho, certainly not just yet.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you there, to be honest. I think the goal threat going forward as well, having some physicality and a bit of presence actually with those late runs into the box could be huge for Liverpool. And, I think it was Joe Rimmer talking on the Blood Red podcast the other day about Liverpool actually need some height in the team for, defending set pieces, attacking set pieces, because sometimes they're often a pretty short team. Virgil van Dijk aside, they're not exactly the most physical at the moment. So, yeah, it'd be a massive, massive boost. Yes, Kephren Thuram, a huge player, Liverpool, hopefully can sign him, get him across the line. France under-21s, of course, who both Kephren Thuram and Manu Kone are playing for, get their under-21 Euros off tonight against Italy. Massive game, that one. I mean, Italy, a very strong side. With me and Ben Boxshot were talking on the preview podcast. Sandro Tonali, of all names, amongst others, playing for that Italy under-21s team. That's sure to be an absolute belt if you want to keep an eye on that one, Liverpool fans, because you might get a catch at the next two Liverpool midfield signings. But anyway, someone who's playing at the under-21 Euros and is already a Liverpool midfielder is Harvey Elliott. He's done an interview and he's basically said that he's surprised that he played so much for Jurgen Klopp's side this season. I mean, what do you make of these comments, Dave? They're pretty interesting ones, aren't they? I mean, he basically said he wasn't expecting to appear as much for Liverpool as he did because he made 46 appearances across all competitions. Do you think he can expect the same numbers next season, or do you think these new midfield signings will perhaps push him out of the team?
It's a good question. I think, to start with, him being surprised, it sort of is a little bit different, I suppose, to Curtis Jones in a way. We've seen so many interviews from him where he's incredibly bullish, but that's a very sort of humble thing for Elliott to say, I think. And it's interesting. Another thing he said in the interview was that it was really his first full season at Liverpool because obviously he was on loan in the 2021 season, and then in 21-22 he started the season quite well, and then he obviously suffered that injury, which kind of, it didn't end the season for him, but when it got to the run-in of that campaign, he wasn't really featuring because he was still sort of in long-term recovery from that. So, you looked at it and there was actually a point sort of quite late on last season where he'd still only made 38 appearances for Liverpool, which is sort of like, the equivalent of a full Premier League season. So it is still early days. I think we probably need to factor that into our judgment. The one thing I would say on him, and I've found this stat at the end of last season, he appeared in, I think it was 41 consecutive Liverpool games, which is going to be sort of a huge asset in terms of, and that was more than any other player, unsurprisingly, but that's going to be a huge asset in terms of, like, even if he isn't a starter this year, if he's sort of available that much and other players have injuries, for even though sort of, Keita and Oxlade-Chamberlain have left the club, we still have, players in our midfield ranks who are susceptible to getting injuries, most notably Thiago. So, just sort of being available at the time will ensure him plenty of minutes. I don't think he is going to be, I think he might sort of suffer a little bit. I mean, he was kind of jostling with Henderson for a lot of last season for that sort of right side of number 8 role. I think now someone's going to come in and try and claim that. His job is to basically supplant Henderson completely in the hierarchy now. I think that's the battle he needs to focus on, I suppose. And I think I probably would back him to get the edge there on Henderson, but obviously the main focus of him needs to be on sort of improving off the ball, and I think that's going to be a big emphasis for Klopp during pre-season.
Yeah, that's, it's a mad stat you brought up there that he'd played in 41 consecutive matches. I mean, that's crazy numbers. And, I have been critical of Harvey Elliott. I'm not sure at the moment, at his current age, he's still obviously so young. He's playing in the under-21 Euros. I don't think he should be starting in a Liverpool midfield that's challenging for titles, to be honest. That's being brutally honest. But his underlying numbers are very, very good. He's arguably the most creative player in the team, especially when you look at the stats. I mean, Dave, do you think that there's a chance maybe with all these midfielders signing that we maybe see Harvey Elliott in an attacking role next year? Obviously, there's lots of matches. The Europa League is going to be a big problem for Liverpool with those, late Thursday nights to Sundays, pretty much with the fixtures. Do you think we could maybe see Harvey Elliott deputising on the right-hand side more? It's where he played a lot earlier in his career.
I mean, in an ideal world, Liverpool would probably go out and get a right winger, but there just isn't going to be enough budget, I think, to do that next year, which is the reality. So they will have to find the sort of in-house solution. We've seen Diogo Jota play right wing from time to time. I don't think it necessarily suits him that well. Elliott sort of, I think he can play there. It's just ideally you want someone who's a closer match for Salah in terms of how they play, whereas Elliott can't necessarily do that. I mean, he just has a different skill set. I wouldn't be surprised at all. I mean, to be fair, I think Salah will feature very sparingly in the Europa League group stages, if at all. So who will it be that starts on the right-hand side? It could be that Elliott features there. I think another interesting one to consider is there's maybe a version of the new midfield where Liverpool put a permanent right back behind Trent, and then that means obviously instead of having this box midfield, one midfielder might drop out. But if you wanted to keep Trent in a double pivot alongside Fabinho, then you could potentially put Elliott number 10 sort of in front of that. That could be one way it works out.
Yeah, I mean, certainly interesting one. This new tactic also does open more opportunities, I think, for Harvey Elliott. He can actually play a couple of positions across it. It'll be interesting to see if Liverpool maybe do sign that right back, as you say, push Trent further forward, or maybe sign someone who can also play the Trent role as a backup position. Interesting to see how it pans out, though. Of course, it all depends upon how many midfielders Liverpool do actually sign, as we said at the top of the show. Hopefully, Kephren Thuram can be one of those. I'd like to see Manu Kone as well. I think is a bit more of number 6. Maybe they'll surprise us all and sign 3, but I think it'll probably be 2. So yeah, as you say, Harvey Elliott does face bit of competition now for his place. And I think Jordan Henderson will sort of adopt the role we've seen James Milner in. But yeah, anyway, we'll wrap up the show there this morning. A couple of interesting stories. And of course, the show will be back again tomorrow. It's 10 a.m. every weekday, everyone. So make sure you subscribe to the Blood Red YouTube channel and like on Liverpool.com Facebook and follow the Liverpool.com Twitter. And of course, keep across the Liverpool.com website for the brilliant articles from our writers such as Dave. But yeah, for now, for myself, Patrick Smith and Dave Comerford, thank you for joining us. We'll catch you again soon.